Hi, everyone, and welcome to OneMicNite, the podcast that brings you stories of artists and people on their journey, helping to guide, answer questions, and motivate you in life and the business. You already know who I am. It's Marco Luis, and I'm back, and I want to thank you guys all for being on this beautiful journey for 17 years. Also, for those of you who are joining for the first time, thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you're listening to the audio, make sure you go to the YouTube channel because we have a live chat every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. on YouTube at OneMicNite, and jump in and talk about the episode. So thank you for that. Today, I am excited. I have a guest here who is a writer, a performer, she's a producer, and she goes by Kim Prentice. She's also a member of the SAG-AFTRA and AEA, Actors Equity. So welcome her to the show. Hi, Kim. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Marcos?
Good. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time out. So happy to have you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Listen, I have questions.
Okay.
The first question is, who is Kim Prentice?
Kim Prentice started off life as a dancer in LA. And in fact, I was a modern dancer at UCLA for a while. That's what I studied. And then got into musical theater and traveled the world and ended up in New York. And got into more acting and singing. And then I wrecked my knee and tried to not completely fall apart and moved into producing and running a theater company. And I work backstage on Broadway as a dresser. So I'm a lot of things that all center around the performing industries.
I love this because this is why I love this. Our journey doesn't always end or doesn't always go the way we plan. So if you're passionate about something, it still kind of works out, right? You know, you find different ways to make it manifest.
Exactly.
Let's go back a little bit. What was growing up like for you in California?
Well, I say I grew up in LA, but I grew up in LA County. So my experience wasn't the typical LA experience. I grew up in the foothills of the Angeles Crest National Forests, in a suburbia.
Yeah.
Mountains behind us, a ski lift like 30 minutes up the hill. But it was protected. It was small town. And I have two brothers. And we, when I was growing up, you just walked out the door and walked up the street to your friend's house and hung out all day and then walked home and nobody was checking on you. So we had kind of a fun, wild life. My brothers were running down in the canyons and in caves. I can't believe that no one got injured, but it was kind of a fun, very. I didn't meet LA until I was older and started to become an actor. I was in a different bubble than LA, but yeah, it was pretty great going to ballet class nearby, and that's all I wanted to do.
Did your parents see something in you that sort of led you to the arts, or was it just say, like sometimes you put the kids, oh, we're going to take them to here, just see what they kind of like, and whatever works out, we'll just go with it.
My mom was a dancer. My mom was
a
dancer.
Okay, good.
So she put me into ballet class. And then when I got into junior high school and auditioned for the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz and got the part of the Scarecrow, the director said, just figure out your dance. So I'm like, okay. So I went home. I'm like, Mom, I have to have a dance. So she choreographed it for me. And I went back and showed my teacher, and she's like, did you choreograph that? And I said, no, my mom did. And she said, really? So my mom started choreographing the junior high school shows and then high school shows. And she and my director formed a summer theater. So every summer I got to be in a musical.
I love that. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it was just I'm going to say the first time we did that summer theater, I was going to be a freshman, and there was a bunch of juniors and seniors. And it was like magic being with all these older kids. And it was, I was hooked.
I love that. So see, this is kind of similar to my story too, because when I was, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, I used to go to the theater and see my mother in shows. So I would sit in the front row and I just remember seeing her performing. I was like, yeah, I love this. I love this. So I started doing theater at a young age too. However, when I got to college, I went to a professional field. I thought I was going to be a doctor,
Right.
and then went back to theater.
Mhm.
That's interesting. I love how, some people's parents open up their minds to the possibility of theater.
Well,
Well,
for fun.
for fun. Yes.
Not,
Okay.
not so excited when I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. And they're like, oh, great. Oh, maybe you want to think about business.
Right. I think parents of, of our generation, probably, I'm not sure how old you're, but our generation, or at least my generation, they kind of geared us toward the professional fields, and not really thinking of the art as the primary field. Yeah.
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 What was the big thing that led you from California to New York?
A guy.
Oh, now we get into it.
I was dancing on a cruise ship, and a musician who was playing on the ship, we started dating, and he's like, I live in New York. So, and his contract ended before mine. He's like, if you've ever thought about coming to New York, I mean, that's where theater is. Come on, and I'd just been in LA. I'd been doing commercials, and trying to get into film and television, not doing a good job at it. So I'm like, well, I've always wanted to go to New York, and he's there. My parents are like, oh my God. What? So yeah. So I came to New York. It was a shock. A shock.
I can imagine. Yeah. What was so shocking about New York for you?
Um, LA is spread out.
Mhm.
You have your car, you have your space. You don't have your own space in New York City. And just the streets and getting where on the subway and having to, and when I was first auditioning, I was auditioning primarily as a dancer. So I had ballet shoes, tap shoes, character shoes, what I was going to wear to dance in, the outfit I would wear to sing in, and my music all on my back. So getting on the subway and fighting, and yeah, it was like, oh my God, you have no space, no personal space in New York City.
None at all. None at all. How did it go for you? I mean, I know like when people move here from another city, you have these hopes, you have these dreams, and every day you're up hustling. And did you ever get to a point where it was like,
Well, in the beginning, I kind of got used to, and I was younger, I got
mhm.
used to getting up early to go. You couldn't sign up online for auditions at that point. You had to go stand in line. And I had been working as my survival job as a dresser on Broadway. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I was working at night, not too late, not, like my friends who are bartending or whatever, up all night. But you get up, you go to the audition, and then you go to a dance class or whatever class you're taking, and then you go to work, and you just keep doing that. And when you're young, you're like, okay. And I started, nobody knew who I was. So I started building a really great reputation for myself as a dancer who could sing, and I was getting very close to being a Rockette, very close to, I was being called to audition, and I wrecked my knee. and,
Oh no.
and everyone who I had been auditioning with, my good friends, became Rockettes. They started getting in shows, and I'm like, oh my God, what, who, I don't know who am I? How do I? And it was crushing. It was pretty crushing. And I'd go to singers calls, and they're like, great, you're going to come to the dance call, right? And I'd have to say, no, I can't. They're
Oh,
like, okay, thank you. So yeah, it, so, I got all ramped up with New York. I learned the subways. I always had a map on me, and I felt like I was finally getting an in, and it kind of came crashing down on me.
what do you
Uh,
feel like at that moment? That has to be That has to put you in a really dark place and just go soul searching for what comes next.
Yeah. And, I kept pushing and I kept trying to go back to dancing. I can just more physical therapy. I can do it, and
Hmm.
after hurting it again and again, I'm like, I don't think I can. And it was rough. And I had a friend call me and say, hey, I'm starting a theater company with some people. Would you be interested in it? I know you're not doing so well. So why don't you come and we'll start doing some theater. We'll start, and we were, having people come and write and just read what they have, do readings. And we were, starting to produce a little bit, develop stuff. And so that was pulling me out a little bit. And I went back to acting class, which started pulling me out of it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, everything, I'm dancing since I was 4. So who am I if I don't have that
Right.
piece of me? I don't know who I am. And it was a huge struggle with all of that.
I love this. And it's it's really hard because it sometimes takes a tragedy in our lives to open up another door for something we may not have even thought about or we didn't have the confidence to pursue.
Yeah.
So with the knee injury, you start doing something else.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's prolific. What was the theater company like for you? Were you were producing and you were actively acting in it as well? Or were
Yeah,
you just
we started as a collective and
Mhm.
and would offer these writers some readings. So we got to be in all the readings, and then we kind of decided to become an actual theater company and get a fiscal sponsor. And so then we're starting to produce, and they're like, and everybody's like, whose job, who should be who? And they're like, Kim should be the managing director. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Okay. Yes. So I'll do all the administrative stuff. Okay. So yeah, I learned a lot about it, being a producer. But my time on stage was less because when you're doing all of the admin and you're running the box office and you're writing the grants and all those things, it becomes a little harder. But yeah, so now I'm like learning how to produce a show in New York City. Great experience, and I'm kind of acting a little bit, and I'm still being a dresser on Broadway, and and that goes for a while.
That's a huge spectrum of things. Like you're really learning a lot. You're really taking on a lot of the whole industry, learning all the different parts. How did you have a mentor or you just kind of learned as you went and just asked a lot of questions or
We started with some mentors who
Mhm.
helped us write our mission and vision statement. What? I don't know what that how do you so we had them for a while, and they were kind of like our advisory board, and they didn't want to stay on to be our governing board, so our regular board. So we started that way, and then we got a fiscal sponsor called Fractured Atlas. There's a lot of in New York. There's the Field, Fractured Atlas, and there's others, but they are the nonprofit. You are under their umbrella, and so they also, if you want to apply for a grant, they help you do that. You
Okay.
send it to them, they send you notes. So they were
It's kind of
giving
like a liaison that, yeah.
yeah, and they had classes, and I went to Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts seminars through them. So yes, they became the next. Here's all the other things you need to learn, and at that point, they had insurance. So learning about what insurance. Okay, great. So I learned through them all of the New York City theater things that I needed to learn.
This is amazing. This is a lot of good information from me. How do you feel like fast forward to now where a lot of people are doing their own business and you were doing it back then. I don't know how many years ago that was and really didn't have the access that we have now. How does that feel in retrospect, looking back at that?
Well, yeah, it was harder. It was you couldn't just Google it.
Right.
So yeah, it was harder. And now, I mean, I just took a class through the Actors Fund, which is now called the Entertainment Community Fund, that covers everybody. They offer classes. It used to be resume writing have another job, have a normal person job, but I just went through during COVID, a whole entrepreneurship class. And all
Wow.
the things that I thought I knew about producing, I'm like, about business and target marketing. I didn't know any of that. So yeah, the resources, even with Zoom, opened up so much more information.
I
And
lived on Zoom during COVID,
yeah,
lived on it. Yeah.
yeah,
Access to so much webinars every day. And anyone who didn't take advantage of that, shame on you,
yeah,
because you have everything at your fingertips.
yeah,
Wow. So wardrobe, let's
yeah.
talk about that. You were a wardrobe stylist, wardrobe. What do you call them, dressers, or do you call them wardrobe?
In theater, you're
Mhm.
a dresser. So
Okay.
I am not the designer. I
Mhm.
am given the costume. I work with the actors to get them in and out of costume. I maintain the costume. In film and television, you're a costumer.
Okay.
Why? Because in film and television, there's something called a set dresser. So that's too confusing. So in film and television, you're a costumer. And
Costumer. Okay.
similar, I'm prepping your costumes. I'm bringing them to your trailer. And, if I'm a personal costumer, I'm in the trailer with you, getting you dressed and setting out all your jewelry, and and we're choosing things with the designer in your trailer. So that's what I do. And that's a new world for me, thanks to COVID. And theater being shut down, I got thrown into doing that. So yeah, it's all about taking care of the costuming and the actor in and out of the costume. And theater, it's a fast paced, you got to get them in quick, you got to get them out quick, and you send them on your way. And film and television, it's you get your actor in whatever time that they need, and then you go with them to set and you keep an eye on them for continuity. So it's slower. Film and television, just slower paced, longer hours. Theater, shorter hours, fast paced, get it done, move it on, get to the next change.
What are some of the favorite on theaters that you've done the dressing in? It's like some of the shows.
Um,
Because
yeah.
yeah.
I The ensemble shows are really fun. Because I worked on Jerusalem. Mark Rylance, the piece came from London. It had started, and of course, because I worked in development, it started as a concept by Jez Butterworth. And he brought actors together and they built this piece in like a greenhouse kind of thing. And they built the piece called Jerusalem, which won a bunch of awards. And then they brought it to New York. And I had already worked with Mark Rylance on a Boeing. So he's now in this thing called Jerusalem, and I get to be on it, and I'm dressing everyone.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
nobody really changes. Mark had changes.
Mhm.
So so when they were they loved that it was an ensemble. So they were most of them were most of the men were in the same room. And so it is lovely because they then bring you in to I am now part of the show. I'm part of the team. And that
Mm.
there's a difference, because sometimes you're part of the team and sometimes you're really not. Sometimes and I bring this up in my show, you're invisible, you're silent, no one should know your name person, or you're the one who's playing games backstage, playing games during quick changes. Because, theater, everybody has to be very good at improv and they're fast on their feet. So they're constantly, even during quick changes, playing silly games, and you're in on the game with them and you send them off. And it's a wonderful energy when you are included in this ensemble.
And so by the game, you mean like the interaction you have with the actor, like the.
Yeah. And sometimes I was just thinking about this.
Mhm.
Remember the Rapture in 2011 where everybody, yeah.
Yeah.
So here's this group from London. They were laughing about the Rapture. It was going to happen during the show that day. And so they're like, what time is the Rapture? Let's keep it, everybody be aware so we know when we're going to ascend or not. And so it's the final quick change. Mark's character he lives in an Airstreamer, Rooster Byron. and he's going to be beaten up. Two thugs come after him. He runs into the trailer, and I do a change out of his shirt into bloody, torn clothes. And then he has to put on this blood makeup and teeth. And then the thugs come in and they're banging against the wall and they're all yelling their lines. I have to be silent because they're mic'd. Bang, bang, bang. We're doing this change. Mark is getting his false teeth in his mouth, and he turns to me and says, "How many more minutes?" And I'm like, "What?" He's like, and I'm like, "Oh, 4." And he's like, "Oh." So we're laughing while he's putting blood on his face and going out, so
Right.
I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't say a word." So that's what I mean by games. I mean, sometimes the game is, let's see how fast we can do the quick change. Sometimes it's the games you used to play in theater when you were a kid, where somebody's wearing a mole, it's mole night, wear a mole somewhere or
Oh,
hide.
yeah.
So they come off and they're still playing the silly game and laughing about it during quick changes.
That's funny. And even with the actors on stage, you do something to see if your acting partner will react or, yeah,
Yep.
like that. Okay,
Yeah, they're
gotcha.
on stage trying to screw each other
Trying
up.
to screw each other. Yeah.
And if then they were doing one night, they were doing riff offs. So someone would add a little riff at the end of you have to keep it within the right amount of time. You can't screw up the continuity. So they were screwing around doing riffs. And one actor, was her last day. She was in the dressing room and she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so nervous." And so she was practicing a riff and practicing a riff and practicing a riff. And she finally got out there. She almost didn't do it. She did a teeny tiny riff and came back. And we were all like, "You did it." You did it. I mean, that's,
That's
yeah.
funny. That's what keeps the energy of theater so fun. The liveness, live theater, not only the reaction from the audience is different every night, but what you're doing, like you said, with each other behind stage. I love this. Let's talk about your show. You have a show called Unseen, right?
Yes.
Tell us about Unseen.
So it's a story of this dresser, and I call her Pam. I mean, obviously wasn't far from Kim, whatever. And it's easier for me to remember my name that way. So I took a bunch of stories that I have, and I was trying to, I have done this before. Right after I hurt my knee, I did a one-person show where I was only telling my stories. I was in an acting class, and one of my classmates said, when I was telling my stories, he's like, "Write it down. Those are funny." So that's what I did. I just told the funny stories. But now I thought I would like to do it again, but I'd like it to be more than just stories. I'd like it to be closer to who I am. I'm older now, and my job, like I said earlier, we've been yelled at for, if anybody can see you. If they even know that you screwed up. So we're often, and we wear black, and we're in the shadows. And so what does that do to me, older woman? Like I said in the beginning of New York, I was, you kind of have to close in to get through. You have to get your poker face on and don't look at anybody. So what does that do is me, now I'm thinking, I've tried to keep acting, but there's been years where I haven't been, and it's like, I don't want to give it up. I want to be able to do this. What's my journey been, as a dresser? And so I started telling those funny stories, but times where people were encouraging me to speak up, moments where I had to speak up, moments where I was told that I had nothing to say, and moments where I got past that. And I'm like, I wonder if that's interesting to anybody. And I had mentioned it to an actor once, and she's like, "Yeah." And that point I was in my 40s. I'm not there anymore. And she's like, "Yeah, I want to hear what you have to say about things. I think that would be interesting." And I'm like, "Really?" Because I feel like what I say isn't really interesting or worthy. And so that started okay, I've been an actor who wants to be on stage, and I've chosen a job where I wear black clothes. I stand in the dark, unseen. And how do I reconcile that with not completely disappearing in my life. So that's what this show is. It's a peek backstage. It's the good, it's the funny stuff, it's the not great stuff, and a little bit of my life all thrown in.
I like that. Now that the show is running, what do you think about the idea that your voice is valuable and people do want to hear what you have to say? Is it a little surprising, or is it?
Well, I haven't opened yet.
Oh, you haven't opened yet?
Yeah. But you know what, Marcus, it was really funny. I did I had 3 weeks of rehearsal and then I had to take a break. So I did those 3 weeks, and then I had some friends come and watch it to see where it was. I wasn't quite memorized because, it's a lot of characters. It's like over 30 characters, and we've moved stuff around. My director taped me, and I started, and I was barreling through it, talking really fast, forgetting things. And when I watched it, I watched myself not take space. I am doing my show in front of my friends, and I can't take the space in front of them. So it didn't hit me. And halfway through, I calmed down. But I thought, wow, I've written this partially for myself, and I don't want you to see me. I don't want to inconvenience you. And I'm like,
interesting.
Geez, Louise, I don't want to inconvenience my friends. I don't want them to take up too much of their time. Why did I write this? So it's interesting for sure.
I love that. I love that because it says a lot about who you are. And so now you're having to process that and actually now, I don't even know the words, maybe live it as you talk about it. You know what I mean? Like telling your story, but at a pace where it's taking up space, because this is your story. This is who you are. And you want people to listen and absorb what you have to say because it's valuable. And that's why they're there. That's why they'll be there, right?
Yeah.
Because they want to hear it.
And they're mostly my friends.
And your friends. Incredible. I like that. So what was the process like for you to actually sit down and put these thoughts together? And I'm asking this for anyone who is listening now who thinks about writing a one-person show.
Yeah. I over COVID, I was in a class about art and how to incorporate art in your life. And I knew that if I wanted to write this piece, I needed to have people keep me accountable. So there were 3 different classes going at the same time. I emailed everyone and said, who wants to be in a writer's group? So I got to, there are 6 of us now, and we figured out the rules. We do it all on Zoom, and every week somebody brings in something. So every week something new had to come. Every 3 weeks I had to come up with something new. And of course, if I didn't, no one would care. But I'm like, this is kind of the contract we made with each other. You bring something in, whether it's 2 paragraphs or 10 pages, you bring it in. So that's how I started doing that. And then I was going back to do some more film and television, which would take up 6 months. And I'm like, okay, before I start that, I want to have a rough draft finished. And so there was a deadline. That's number 1, you needed people to keep you accountable. Number 2, a deadline. If there's no deadline, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
Right.
Because you can take forever. So these people are keeping me accountable. Then I had to have the reading on this date because I was going back into this other show on this date. That's it. Friends and a deadline.
Okay, beautiful. That is probably the daily lesson too. Yeah. When you wake up in the morning, you have to have your goals. Hold yourself accountable for that. Yeah. Wake up with intent, right? Yes. So that's what you did. You set the deadline, and every time your deadline was there, you had to have what you needed, which keeps you on track.
Yep.
I like that. I like that. That's the message for the day.
Yeah.
So what are you looking forward to once this show, when does the show go up?
The first show is October 14th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a little time. I definitely want to be there. This is in New York, right?
It's in New York. It's United Solo Festival at Theater Row on 42nd Street.
Okay. I will be somewhere in that mix. I promise you. I want to see this show.
Okay, great.
So you said 31 characters. Is it 31 changes of clothes and
Nope.
just
Of me.
you?
Yeah. Um, because I have a certain amount of time.
Mhm.
I can't expand. So it is me changing my physicality and my voice for each character, because why I thought it would be a great idea to have a conversation between two characters. So I made it difficult on myself, but it's kind of fun to go back and forth to be, I'm playing characters backstage. Gosh, I'm playing stagehands. So much freaking fun playing a stagehand. So yeah, it's all these characters, and I am, and it's all mime. So I am doing quick changes on someone who isn't there, and that's trying to make that look like what I'm doing has been a test, because this is a festival, so you can't have a huge set, you can't have a ton of props, you have to have pretty much what you can bring in the building and take out once you're done.
Very minimal.
Yeah, minimal. I've got 3 collapsible laundry baskets and an apron full of stuff, and that's it.
I love this. This is where the best theater comes from, in my opinion. I love that because you don't need the set. It's the actor that we're listening to. It's the words that we're listening to, and you're the one telling the story. So that's what's going to bring us in. It's not so much about the props. We've done this in acting school.
Yeah.
But it's like reverting back to that.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
the acting. It's the words.
Yeah.
I'm really happy. I'm really excited to see this.
Thank you.
What's the one thing you want us to know about it?
Um,
Why should we even see this?
well, one, if you want to know what happens backstage, I think that everybody knows what's happening back there, and people find it surprising. No, that's the one light thing. It's kind of fun to see what happens backstage. But the other thing is, if you don't take the risk to change your life isn't going to change. And so in this piece, I have to risk changing something, or I stay invisible forever. And, I don't know if I think that resonates with a lot of people, women over 40.
Don't
Um,
worry, I'm in the club.
yeah.
So we're
Yeah. So come see it, to maybe hear someone else speak your truth, because it's my truth. And I know my director's also around the same age. And so we're all trying to be seen and not become invisible just because we're older, just because we're women. And so it's,
is this is this part of your truth?
yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I don't, I'm trying to stay visible and relevant and at this age, and I want to be acting again. So I'm making it happen for myself right now.
That's right. I think do you feel vulnerable?
Oh, yeah. 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 And I'm taking a risk because I'm telling stories that some are funny and some are not so funny. And they're based on, I've taken intense creative license, but they're based on incidences. So,
Is it empowering for you
it's
to do this?
empowering to say
Mhm.
things that have happened to me that I have not been able to say other than to just a few people. So it's like, yeah, this is what happens sometimes. This is not great. We'll see how it goes.
Is this a new chapter for you, do you feel like?
Yeah, I do. Cause again, I've been a dresser on Broadway for over 25 years, and it's rough on the body. I don't, it's,
Yeah.
I would like to hand that off to other people. And, as much as I enjoy it, I would like to really focus more on my own creativity now. So.
And this is what you're doing. I love it. I love this. I don't even know you. I'm meeting you for the first time and I love it. This is, you are something special. So I'm wishing you the best of luck. And like, as I said, I will be there and hopefully bring some people along with me to experience this, because it's very empowering to hear you say that, and you're saying from a woman's perspective, I'm saying from a man's perspective of a certain age. So to see you take hold of your own creativity and empowering yourself and being authentic and being vulnerable. And I think that's what we all want in this life, is we want to be accepted for who we are. And this is where you're going with it.
Yeah.
Kim, do you have something else coming up that you want us to know about, or you're just concentrating on this right now and making this the best it can be?
Yeah, this is it. I actually just finished being in a show. There was a surprise. Somebody asked me to be in their show. So yeah, my friends are like, "Oh, universe."
I'm going to tell you a little secret too. I think once you get to be a certain age, and as actors, as performers, we put in the hard work. People will start to recognize who you are, and they either write scripts for you or give you things that are in alignment with where you are in your life and where you're going. So just keep shining. It's happened to me, and I don't know how this has happened, but people are sending me scripts, and they're projects that I believe in, and they're projects that I love. And it's because of the hard work we've done. And you're there. You're definitely there.
Thank you.
Your light shines bright.
Thanks.
Let everyone know how they can get in touch with you, how we can see this show. I'll have all the information down in the notes of this episode, but please let us know when it is and how we can get in touch with you.
Great. Well, the show is United Solo Festival. You can go online. The shows I have right now are October 14th, 19th, and 22nd. If I sell the 19th, I'll get another show. So go on United Solo Fest. Of course, I don't have it in my head. But also you can check out my webpage, KimberlyPrentice.com.
Kimberly Prentice, thank you so much for coming on One Mic Night. Thank you for your inspiring story and journey. I will definitely be in touch with you. I will definitely come see the show. All the notes for this show will be in the episode down below, the episode notes down below. So please make sure you follow KimberlyPrentice.com. Take a look at that and find all her social media. Follow her on those. Thank you, everyone, for joining me for this episode of One Mic Night. You can follow the show at OneMicNite. OneMicNite is spelled OneMicNite, or you can follow me at Marcos Luis, MarcosLuis. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Also, check the notes down below. You can find the link to my store, Azules EN, and check out some of the new merchandise we have. And thank you for everybody who's bought merchandise so far. I really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing these episodes. We'll see you next time. This is One Mic Night.